Hey, how are you doing this morning? We are back for another reading from a book I once wrote called Where is the Hope? And we are on the final stretch run, 3 chapters to go. Today's reading is chapter 16, and it is called Couch Potatoes. Couch Potatoes. The subtitle for this chapter is Choose the Spiritual Without Neglecting the Physical. So let's just dive right in and see what I once wrote as read by the author. Warning: if taken seriously, the following material may be challenging to your well being. It pertains to a recent headline and article in the USA Today. By the way, this was written in the 1990s. The headline stated in bold letters: Surgeon General to target couch potatoes. No doubt, many people are baking on their sofas right now. Sorry, I couldn't resist the pun. Why? Because many people have chosen to waste their lives away, literally, by sitting on their couches and filling their minds with any and everything that comes from the tube that is constantly in front of them. The article explains that due to an epidemic of inactivity, the Surgeon General's office plans to warn couch potatoes in the same way it targets smokers and drinkers. The proposed wording of one warning is this: the Surgeon General has determined that lack of physical activity is detrimental to your health. Is the warning needed? All one has to do is look around at the high number of out of shape people due in large part to inactivity. One can't normally hide this from others. Their waste and shortness of breath often give it away. Keeping physically fit is not only important and essential, but scriptural. Paul reminds us that you are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. Let me just pause for a moment, and we'll get back to the reading. But if you've been following my journey and Kendra's journey this year, you've noticed that we have radically changed our eating habits and have combined lost more than 60 pounds. And we created using some habits of health. And we really focused on our nutrition because we used to think it was exercise that did it, but it's not. It's nutrition first, then exercise, probably 80-20 or 90-10. But if you have any interest in that or any questions about what we did or what we're doing, we'd love to share that with you. But this verse right here was one of the ones that really challenged me because I realized that I was not being a good steward of my body. And because I wasn't being a good steward of my body, I wasn't taking care of it. And I knew something had to change. And I am so glad it did. I wished I'd started this plan, this program, this system when I was in my 20s. But I've really radically learned how to eat healthy and better. And it's been more than 6 months. In fact, it's 6 months this past weekend since we lost all that weight, and we have kept every single ounce of it off because this is lifelong transformation. Okay, that was a free commercial. Sorry about that, but I just thought it was relevant to the reading today and it might help you or somebody that you know. So just reach out if you have any questions. So back to the reading. Paul says, therefore, honor God with your body. No doubt that warning is much needed. However, there is another warning that we need to be reminded of even more than the one above. Being a couch potato not only affects the body, but the spirit. This warning doesn't come from the Surgeon General, but from our spiritual general. This is how it could be worded. The spiritual general has determined that lack of spiritual activity is detrimental to your soul. The problem of spiritual inactivity has been a part of every generation. There are examples abound in God's Word. One only has to be reminded of the wickedness that covered the earth before the flood. It had gotten so bad that everything they thought about was evil. An entire world, except for 8 people, was destroyed as a result. One only has to chronicle the topsy-turvy relationship the children of Israel had with God from their Egyptian bondage to their miraculous deliverance through the Red Sea to their wandering and complaining in the wilderness. If you'll recall, an entire generation, save 2 people, were lost during this time. Or what about the time when things had turned so sour that God's word was lost and the temple had been destroyed? Fortunately, God worked through an 8-year-old king to restore them. In each of these instances, why had things gone so bad? Did things just get into such disarray by chance? Hardly. By the way, you do not drift into bad habits. Although the Bible doesn't say it in these exact words, the short of it is that spiritual inactivity was the root of the problem. And the same is true today. For far too long, there has been an epidemic of spiritual inactivity, and most people pay far less attention to this problem than they do the physical problem. The government estimates that about 65% of the people lead dangerously sedentary lives. I had to look that word up too. According to Webster, sedentary means characterized by a sitting position and taking little physical exercise. Conversely, many people lead dangerously sedentary spiritual lives. Too many people get comfortable in the sitting position and therefore take little spiritual exercise. The results can be devastating, much worse than a potbelly or clogged artery, although those are pretty awful too. The writer of Hebrews points this out when encouraging us to give up milk, which is for infants, and take up solid food. Listen to it in the writer's own words. This is from Hebrews 5:13 and 14. Anyone who lives on milk, being still an infant, is not acquainted with the teaching about righteousness. But solid food is for the mature, who by constant use have trained themselves to distinguish good from evil. Sound familiar? Again, spiritual inactivity was the source, just as it is today. It leads people to a point in their lives where they can't distinguish right from wrong. The consequences are the result of a relationship with God that has deteriorated to the point where people have become spiritual couch potatoes. One who is out of shape spiritually may be able to fool others for a while, easier than hiding behind being out of shape physically. But before long, your spiritual inactivity will show up in your thoughts, words, and actions. But God is never fooled. So I ask, in what kind of shape are you? Spiritually and physically. And by the way, this is another side note. I believe that everything is spiritual. It isn't a spiritual and physical, but it all goes together. And we need to be stewards, good stewards of everything God has given us. Would that we would be more concerned with the spiritual than, let me say that again. Would that we would be more concerned with the spiritual without neglecting the physical. So, folks, there it is, chapter 16. And chapter 16 dealt with the subject of couch potatoes. And I just want to say to you, wherever you are in life, if you're dealing with struggles and need some help spiritually, or you need some help physically, I'd love to help you with either of those and encourage you and walk alongside you to help you grow and to become more and more like Jesus. So there you have it. I hope today's reading was helpful and that it wasn't too hard or difficult to hear. But if it was, I encourage you to take some kind of action today. Alrighty, we'll be back again tomorrow, and we have 2 chapters left. Hope you have a great day. Bye.